Hello and welcome to the Seahawkers podcast. We are live. We are UnCatfished. It is Thursday night, and I am joined by a couple of my good buddies. We got Clinton Bonner, and we've got Mr. Phil Leidick. How you doing, Phil?
Phil is doing very well. I'm feeling good right now, actually. So 2 weeks until the draft. Can hardly wait to get it going. How about you guys?
Clinton? I'm ready. I'm ready to go. It's just a couple weeks away, Clinton. I know you're ready.
Yeah, excited. I'm excited that Mr. Phil went first person Phil on us. That I like. That's a first for first person Phil on the SHP.
It could be. Hey, it's the time of the year. I mean, it's a bunch of firsts going on for our Seahawks because they're showing up to work, and for the first time, they're getting to see all the changes that Mike McDonald has instituted around the VMAC. I mean, we all have heard by now that there's no basketball hoop in the meeting room, so that's a big change. I feel, Phil, wins and losses. How does removing the basketball hoop from the meeting room? Is it plus or minus in the wooden column?
There's going to be less wins and losses in the training facility amongst players. There's potentially more wins for the Seahawks because there's less sprained ankles and injuries happening on non-football activities.
They're just in the meeting. If you've never been into the VMAC, it's just like a basketball hoop that's set up. They're not actually playing basketball in the meeting room. They're just shooting baskets from, around the room.
George Fant's going full Shaq mode on top of some Reek Woolen and breaks his arm in the rim. That's how I see it, Brandon.
I'd heard that George Fant played basketball. That's what I heard at one point. Yeah.
That is something that Jimmy Graham, a legendary basketball player, of course,
and pilot. Yeah.
always flew to work. So yeah, I am the odd one out tonight. MG, I am not wearing my Seahawks hat. I probably have like one within arm's reach if I really need to figure it out. But I got my Super Bowl champions gear on, so I've got it worked out.
You know what you need, Brandon? You need something that has a little something to do with what if. Champion, something like that.
Yeah, I don't need to rub it right into Clinton's face though that I'm the what if champion, but I do also have that within arm's reach. We've got Samuel Gelber here coming in with a $12 super chat. See, we've got some live executive producers. Samuel Gelber joining us. Have been missing out on most of the live streams. Glad I caught this one.
Oh, thank you, Sam. That's amazing of you, and glad that you're here with us, dude. Of course.
We've got Amy here in the Discord, or not in the Discord, in the YouTube. She's got her flock Go Hawks. See, the emojis, I'm disappointed that they show up in the chat on YouTube, but we can't show them off here on the through the live stream. I don't know why that doesn't work. We've got Ryan 911, live executive producer, $9.99 super chat. Thursday Night Live. Go Hawks. Go Hawks, Ryan.
Yeah, dude. TNL, thank you so much. Yeah, Mr. Phil brought up what if, and I am storming towards the season. I think like we all are, guys. I'm ready. For me, getting through get through the first wave, and then it's draft time, and then we're just gonna cut through kind of the doldrums of that May and June because it does slow down a bit. I'm more of a season guy. I know there's people that go bananas with the off season. There's some great podcasters out there that I like a whole lot, and they really profess like how much they love the off season. I like the off season, but it turns out I like the season better. I don't know about you guys.
The off season is nice because it's what could be, and it's all everything that goes in. That's the buildup, right? It's just like, enjoying college sports because you get to see the guys before they're the real NFL talent. So now this is the buildup part to the real deal.
I like the off season, and I think draft day might be better than most regular season games as far as getting excited about that particular day. But overall, I just can't quite buy. I mean, I love some of these guys, but I can't quite buy where they say, I like the draft. I like the off season more than I like the regular season. I'm like, have a pulse, have some life inside of your blood that flows to see football plays that matter. And you don't know what the outcome's going to be. It's not, I'm just watching tape to see if he'll play for my favorite team. I enjoy the hope. I enjoy getting to know some of those players, but to compare the thrill of we might win, we might lose with let's watch some more tape of a guy that might be on my team or maybe one of the other 31 teams. To say that's close in comparison, that's a tough sell for me.
Yeah.
I think it's just different. And so I can see why, there's different aspects of the off season that you would like, different aspects of the regular season, but it doesn't, I mean, there's nothing in the off season that compares to actual football. And it's obvious when we start seeing, some of these up and coming leagues. We've watched the XFL, we've watched the fan controlled football league,
Mm.
we've seen a lot of these different options for football in the spring. I can never get into them. They're just not. It's not the same. It's not the same.
I want to give a quick shout out to our live executive producer, Samuel Gilbert from way downtown with the comment, Dolphins, Jets, and Chargers are teams that prefer the offseason. Yes, every single year, these
It's
teams,
cold.
they perennially win the offseason. And I will say real quickly, you did mention college sports, so I got to take the old victory lap. UConn Huskies. I'm a UConn guy. It's where I went to school and graduated. I live in Connecticut. National champs. I'll bask in that for 10 seconds and we can move on.
All right. Well, we've got MG in the chat saying, "Do you think our recent O-line signings are just camp/find out signings?" They've brought in some guys. Yeah, Clinton nodding his head. I think I saw field goals linked to an article that says the Seahawks are projected to have the worst offensive line in football. So if that tells you anything about even with the recent signings of what everyone's kind of expecting based on some of the recent signings, yeah, and the fact that I would challenge anybody to come up with the name of the person who was signed this last week and the player that they brought in this past week to potentially sign for the offensive line. It's impossible to know.
I know the dude, like, I think he was born in Italy or Germany, played in one of the, maybe it was vice versa, was on the Lions and has never played an NFL snap. These things I know. So that was the dude we signed. So hey, maybe he'll be okay. But I mean, these are bodies. These right now they're camp bodies. They're not projected as NFL starters. And I think we still have some major, I think we all think we have some major guard problems. And I do find it fascinating. There's like so many folks that the things rotate as the one cool part of the draft season is that you pay attention to it. And there are people that do a really good job covering it, like very, very good. And I respect it. But the thought process evolves like, oh my gosh, if Fatano is there at 16 or it's a deep tackle and you can move him inside, draft and there's so much talent there. And it just starts to evolve. And then these second tier and third tier guys get bubbled up and they get like this buzz and this fizz. So then it's like, oh, we absolutely can trade back. And look, we just discovered this dude that's maybe a second rounder or a third rounder. He's just as good. It's like, well, if he's just as good, why wasn't he getting first round buzz? His entire college career, right? So I
Well,
still
and
find,
there's the cycle too of I feel like, gosh, toward the beginning of the offseason, we weren't talking about Cooper DeJean at all. And
Mhm.
then he comes out and he has, he gets cleared medically, and it's like, oh, all of a sudden, hey, we're talking about him because obviously he would have been talked about in the top 20 if he would have been able to go through the combine and do all the workouts and do all that sort of thing. But it does seem like when something hits within the news cycle, then it brings everything back to a certain guy.
Mhm.
There's things that we can count on in the NFL, 60-minute games, Dolphins, Jets, and Chargers enjoying the offseason more than the regular season. And going into the season, Seahawk interior line being suspect at best. It's one of those things that we just kind of go through every single year. It sure would be nice if they could plug in like a piece that has a potential to be actual Pro Bowl guard on our team in one of his first couple years. Do we even know what that would feel like? And well, we do, but not since
I mean,
Holmgren's
not
been gone.
since Mike Holmgren in the mid 2000s, right?
Hutchinson and yeah. Since then, I can't, we've never even expected there'd be a chance at any of our interior line being a
Well,
real Pro Bowler.
well, I would say after year one of Damian Lewis, I thought he was a really good rookie. And then they did the thing where they moved him and
Yeah.
they never looked back. It was like, wait, he was a good right guard.
Yeah.
And you got to flip your whole body. It's like they compare it to like skateboarding, like going goofy if you have to go from left to right or right to left, right-handed to left-handed. And I always found that odd that like he played right guard really, really well year one, and they booted him and never,
You know what we
never,
need? We
never
need you
thought
to
about it.
play on the left side.
Yeah, yeah, that's it. And then, well, when there was right guard challenges again and just other guard challenges, they never thought to bring him back over. I just always found that curious, and I don't know why, because I thought he was pretty darn successful as a right guard, and maybe even more so than his time as a left guard. It was just interesting to me.
Well, we've got actual players who are still on our team to talk about because we had some press conferences this week. And we had Geno Smith up there on the podium. We
Mhm.
had Tyler Lockett. We had Uchenna Nwosu. And we had Julian Love and Mr. Phil. But out of those four guys that we listened to at the press conferences, were there any big takeaways?
Yeah.
What was one big takeaway for you out of that group?
My big takeaway is Gino's attitude and mentality. I think that's the low hanging fruit. Julian had some cool things to say about practice. There are all the things you hope one of your possible captains would say. He just kind of nailed it right down the line. So it was nice, but it was, of course, Julian Love said that he's vying to be our defensive captain. Gino, he said things you want to hear, but they came out very genuine to me in that I think he still feels like people wrote him off. He's still not writing back until he holds up the Lombardi trophy. He's got kind of this mindset that I've still got a lot to show. There's a lot. I really believe he's got a lot more in his mind and his body to show. And he's looking forward to, I wouldn't say proving everybody wrong, but kind of proving everybody wrong.
Proving a portion of people
Right.
wrong.
And the people that love him right. Yeah. So the
Yeah.
people that love him, prove him right. The people that don't, showing him he's a little better than they have been portraying him.
Well, and that was one of the things that jumped out to me too, is that you got a sense that in the off season, these guys, maybe they don't hear it so much during the season, but in the off season, you heard loud and clear from Tyler Lockett say, "Hey, can we stop with the articles about trying to trade me?" So clearly, the message is getting around of the different types of stories that are going around, and then with Sam Howell coming in and people not being so sure if Geno Smith's going to be the guy or Sam Howell, potential future guy. I think that, a guy like Geno, well, shoot, he hears that stuff out on social media and responds to it too. So obviously he's, it's getting to him.
The dude's wired for competition. I mean, most guys in the NFL are, and after the journey that Gino went on, right? I think he does still carry that with him. He knows how hard he had to work to get this chance and and stay in the league, stay useful, stay relevant to coaches, and then capitalize when he finally got his opportunity again. And so for him to talk about it, yeah, I saw the videos of him working out and getting cut up and new things he's doing, new regiments,
He's
and
got a six pack again.
he
Made sure to let us know.
he's got that rocking. He does look. See, one thing about when Russ got a little older, Russ got thicker, and
Fluffy.
he just got he was that's his body shape.
Potatoes.
Lots of potatoes. He ate all the bread. He ate all the bread balls. He ate the ball. He ate the bread. He ate a ball. And he got a little thicker. And for Russ's game, that was a big setback because he lost that step, and then he stopped running the ball. That was, to me, it's like you could go right back to like 4 years ago. Now he's still in the Seahawks when he just decided to stop running the ball. Somebody got in his ear that he shouldn't take the 6-7 yards, and it basically put him off track. With Geno, he's kind of slendering even more as he's just keeping his 30 some odd year old athletic body in shape at this point, and he's doing all the right things. The one thing I'm fearful of though is he's doing all these like baseball arm things, like throwing the balls behind him. You see him doing these things that the pitchers now do, and pitchers, I don't know if you guys watch a lot of baseball, but pitcher injuries in baseball, I don't really get
Way
it.
up.
They put a pitch count in. They only do 6 innings now, and yet they all blow out their friggin' shoulders and their ligaments. Meanwhile, Tom Seaver and Nolan Ryan would throw 200 pitches a night and come back the next night and be able to fire the ball. So I say all this to say, I love that Gino has that chip on his shoulder. I love that when he's asked about it, he says, yeah, I'm competing with Sam. Sam's competing with me. You know what? I love it. There's nothing presumed. It's not in his fiber. He's going to go out there and he's going to work. I still continue to love that dude and think if we give him even if field goals is slightly wrong, a decent offensive line, we're still in for a really above average year with Gino.
Yeah, I'm hoping, TD, that Gino will not be running for his life, because during the season, yeah, we don't need him getting that kind of cardio.
Love it, TD. Funny.
Other takeaways from the press conferences, Tyler Lockett, I mentioned his comment about him not wanting to be traded. Also, putting it out there that in terms of his salary and people thinking, because that's part of the trade conversation too, right? Is that he makes too much based on his, on his output and the production and that type of thing. Even though I think Tyler gets significant production. I mean, he doesn't drop anything that you throw to him, but he made sure to point out too that it's not just production on the field that guys get paid for. So it's those other things behind the scenes. And Tyler's obviously a leader in the locker room, and so that was kind of an interesting little nugget to me too. Just that he was pointing that out for folks.
Yeah. Yes. So for me, I feel like I might owe Tyler an apology. I'm not sure I'm ready to give it, and I'm not sure that I even definitely.
You're in the mindset of you might need to, though.
I'm shifting. It's like draft season. It's just things are evolving, right? I'm in the mindset that I might need to apologize to Tyler at some point, because he's done everything right. Right.
Yeah.
He's the dude who's done everything right. And I come on the pods at times. I'm like, well, he might be blocking JSN touches, and we might be wasting premier years of JSN. And I don't mean wasting that there's no productivity. That's not what I mean. I mean, not getting the touches of like a number one, number two volume wise when he's a cheap player, when you have him on the cheap, because wide receiver is a very premier position. You overpay for that talent. So that is a bit of an imbalance for me. But when I hear him talk about, he's like, yeah, it's not about I took this cut, and it's not, there's more to life. He has a very grounded mindset.
Yeah.
It seems like there's way more to life than just the money for him. He's like, Seattle is home. And you don't get that much in modern sports.
No,
you just
no.
don't. So I think when we do get it, I even have to step back and be like, I might soon at some point in the future, maybe owe him an apology.
See, we haven't. I always pound the table for some of these long-term guys to retire with the team. Bobby didn't get an opportunity to do it. KJ didn't get an opportunity to do it. Sherman didn't get the opportunity to do it. Cam did because he got hurt. But we need a guy, and Tyler can be that guy.
I've always loved Tyler. I would have thought it'd been crazy to keep him at the number he was originally at, but this just adds to my love for him, his willingness to see where he's at, see kind of his trajectory as a player, and say, yeah, I'll take what I'm worth. And John said, yeah, we'll pay you what you're worth. And beautiful win for both sides. I think it's okay for every fan to love all our players. And then you get to have one that you can be unreasonably biased toward on, even contracts. And I think for a lot of fans, Tyler's that guy, maybe even for John, and maybe John understands that. But I mean, they did it right. Both sides did it right. He's worth what he's getting paid. He's getting paid what he's worth. I'm totally happy to have him sharing the number 2 role with JSN if it turns out that way. Last year, I was disappointed with Tyler's production, not just in his getting open, but there were some key passes that I was used to him catching, and I don't know why he didn't catch them. I didn't think it was Gino's ball placement necessarily, but maybe it was. That's something that age shouldn't affect. He should be able to fix that. His separation, we may never have the last moment final gear separation that he's had for so many years. So he's just going to have to get crafty, and he's going to have to make all the key catches like he did with the 2 game winners for the last game of the season, so that the Seahawks could have a winning season and Clinton could be sad that we didn't have a losing season.
Phil, those 2 or 3 drops only stand out because that's 2 or 3 more than he has in any other given year. So
sure.
I
Yeah,
totally
that's
understand.
right. That's right. Yeah.
There
We
He's
there's
got
just
a
all
can't do it
around
now.
sports here in the chat saying, "Hey guys, who do you think the Seahawks will take in the first round pick?" And one of the things that we wanted to talk about tonight, gentlemen, is that the Seahawks have had they have the opportunity to bring in 30 players leading up to the draft, to bring them into the VMAC. They can do medical tests. They can't work them out, but they can walk them around the building, see how they treat the staff, interact with the people there, and it kind of gives them more time just to get to know these players ahead of the draft. And what we end up seeing is that at least 2 or 3 a year on average tend to end up making it on the team. And so I think they use these visits kind of as a valuable time to get to know some of these guys. And so I wanted to go down the list, kind of get an idea of who you guys, if you were to pick maybe a guy or two that you would want on the Seahawks based on some of these pre-draft 30 visits. And they're not even done yet. That was one of the things we heard from John Schneider today on Seattle Sports Radio, is that of the 30, they still have some more next week. The deadline is Thursday next week. And so they still have an opportunity to finish these off. But going through some of the news reports, I counted maybe right around 20, 18 to 20 guys who have come in. And I know I've got at least a couple guys that I'd like to see. I'm curious, either one of you guys have a first round pick? Anybody projected in the first round that kind of jumped out to you of the guys who have visited the VMAC?
Mr.
You got
Phil,
one first, Clinton?
I was gonna say, why don't you take it first? I have one, but you go first.
Well, I did mine kind of last week, so I was trying to come up with something a little more original. I really like Murphy. That would be exciting for me if we had Murphy. I know they've met with Fatanu. He's not on the list of guys that
He's a local guy though, and they just had their local visits, so they tend not to count those local visits among those 30 visits. Although Bo Nix was a 30 visit, and he's within their area, so I thought that was interesting.
I
but
feel like
but
that's Bo Nix's agents being like, no, you're gonna call this one of those top 30. So we're gonna get that out there because the rumor is that Bo Nix is sliding, right? That's the rumor, is that he might be sliding
yeah,
right out of the first round, and that they're trying to really ramp him back up. So that would
Oh,
not be a
interesting.
shock to me. Yeah.
there were pictures of Schneider there watching Fatanu when he was working out. Like he was very close watching him
Right.
do well. So, but that's not a top 30. I was kind of more fascinated with some of the groupings and some of the areas in which they looked at guys. So more than an individual player, it was just kind of interesting to see all the different ones. I've also, yeah, I don't want to jump too far ahead because you're probably going to talk about what Schneider said this afternoon or didn't say, but there was a couple tips in there as I took it all in afterward. But I kind of took the 30 visits as a whole. The quarterbacks may be different because they look at them now, and that's going to help them kind of understand things for their team later, possibilities when something comes open down the road. I think there's guys like, Jaden Daniels, they meet with him. There's no way we're getting Jaden Daniels, right? I
Yeah,
mean,
I feel like it would be very unlikely. We don't necessarily know how the draft is going to fall out, but I would think that Jaden Daniels goes in the top 3.
Yeah.
I
We'll
mean, I don't know who Adam's going to put for his top guys, but for me, watching Jaden Daniels for 2 years, I'd trade anything for if I wanted a quarterback, then I want the
Yeah.
one that I believe can be one of the best ever. And Jaden Daniels has the ceiling of possibly being one of the best ever. So I could see the interest there. And then, of course, there's a lot of reasons people are interested in McCarthy, his mentality, the school he comes from, just kind of the way he has about himself, but we're not getting those guys. So the quarterbacks, I don't look at the same way. I was interested that we looked at so many edge guys.
Yeah.
And so there was a couple like Verse and Robinson. They both are some neat athletes with some skills to
Potential first
cause
round picks.
fumbles. What's that?
Potential first round picks with both
Yeah.
those guys. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Verse for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, Versus to hop in, Phil. Verse was the one to me that was. He's one of the dudes that, like, look, he was supposed to. He could have come out a whole year ago, and he was still going to be a very high draft pick a whole year ago. And very often when that happens, dudes often like sacrifice. It's like they're not quite as good next year. Well, he came back out and he was really, really good again.
Yeah.
another full year leading a powerhouse team and down in Florida State. And he's interesting, right?
Yeah.
He's a tough player that if at 16, and I like our edge group, just like I like the offseason. But if we can get Jared Verse and really start and bring in a different type of talent, and
Yeah.
then you start to look at Nuosu, Nuosu with Verse, and then Mafe really coming to his own on year 3, and then you've got the other dudes still developing. That could be an extremely talented edge group. And then knowing what McDonald wants to go do, and he wants dudes who could really get after the quarterback at any given down. That's pretty exciting. So I could start to talk myself very much into, as much as I want to fix the obvious hole, I also love the idea of bringing in a potential game wrecker who really makes this defense that much more dangerous and dynamic, because we've lacked that the last few years.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
his drop down in the draft isn't anything to do with versus play. There's so many amazing quarterbacks and receivers in this draft and offensive tackles. It's hard for normally. I think in a lot of drafts with all those great offensive players, you'd be talking verse in the top 10. I would expect, right,
I
Brandon?
think so. And that
yeah.
was the whole point of the stick and pick show, really, was like, look, it's not common that you get this much front loaded, where you
Yeah.
might get 2, 3, or 4 blue chippers that are really sitting there at 16. Um, and of course, every single year, some dude goes at 21, becomes a blue chip player. Some dude goes in the second round, becomes a blue. I get that, but that's kind of where my brain is still like, I could get behind picking and sticking a awesome player at 16, but there's this rumor and momentum, Brandon, that the trade down still probably the way it goes. So I guess
I don't know if it's necessarily momentum, or
Yeah.
we tend to see things the way that we want them to go, and we've seen some news reports that there's a few teams that are talking about trading with the Seahawks. But I feel like you could write that article every single year, right? That the Seahawks talk to X number of teams about potential trades, and you'd probably be right, because John Schneider's probably setting up things with different GMs. It's got to be more than 3. So
Yeah.
and Gambling Goat in the chat saying the draft value of the 16th pick has never been higher, and a part of that is due to potentially the number of quarterbacks, but there's other guys there too. It's in terms of edge talent. I mean, once you get past, because I think the number 1 overall guy has to be Dallas Turner, who's likely going to be a top 10 pick. He's out of Alabama,
Mhm.
and I don't see him necessarily slipping out of the top 10. After Verse, you have the UCLA pass rusher who has some medical issues that he has overcome, which were
Grayson.
what's that?
Yeah,
Latu.
Grayson. He's
Latu.
awesome. Grayson
No,
Murphy, right? Isn't he
no,
awesome?
Liatu Latu is
Latu.
Oh,
the first rounder. No, Grayson Murphy. I think he's also out of UCLA, but I think he's actually projected a little bit. He might be a projected day 3 guy.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I was confusing the 2 names.
Yeah.
The one you're talking about with the injuries could be amazing, but he could also never play, right?
I mean, the fact that he came
Yes.
back to play was pretty incredible. So and he's projected to be in the first round, even despite all of those issues. So I think Latu is, that it's a cool story. I wouldn't mind him being a Seahawk. It's just after Verse and after Dallas Turner, the edge rushing group. It's and Gamble Goat saying Latu's medicals came back perfect. So that's the history that you concern yourself with too. So
For sure.
those are some of the first round guys. The couple of guys that I looked at, I didn't look at it necessarily in terms of first rounders. When I went through these 30 visits, I looked at players where I could see some immediate starting potential.
No.
And so the one guy that I kind of was drawn to was Cameron Kitchens, who was
Okay.
the safety out of Miami. He was a potential round 2, round 3 guy. So if he slips to round 3, but Kitchens, I just in terms of his size and the way he plays, the thing that I've kind of been banging the table on in terms of safety is that they don't have a guy like Quandre Diggs, and Kitchens to me is that Quandre Diggs type fit. If we're going to stick with the same free safety type role that Quandre played, then Cameron Kitchens would be the guy. And the reason why he's not ranked higher would be he doesn't
Character.
have like elite speed.
And his
But
character from Rice, right? Wasn't it to do with some character concerns at Rice? Like he's
I don't remember reading about that. It was more about his tackling ability just because of his size and some of his speed. So
okay.
But
maybe there's some character stuff there too.
He's from SMU, and there was something weird that happened with another school. I don't know. But,
before he went to Miami.
That's what I'm trying to look at right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And I would say that on the speed part of it too, you don't to be an effective player, an effective safety like Diggs was for a lot of years, he wasn't effective because of elite speed.
Right.
It's enough speed. It's being a little faster on the field than you might show out in a 40. But I mean, at that safety, it's so instinctive. It's center field. It's just reacting before the majority of people will react to something and sinking into something and then laying the hit or stepping in front of a dude and stepping in front of a post and getting an interception, right? Yeah, safety to me is it's just like a deeper middle linebacker. Like if you really think about what it is, right? You're reading the field and you're kind of playing center field. So it's just that ability to process from that depth and be decisive. And if you have that, you could make up for a quote unquote lack of speed at that particular position.
I think it's just that so many of us, I see Camden in the chat mentioning Earl Thomas. We think of Earl and his ability to really move.
Well,
and we haven't had that. And, that's one of the reasons why he was a top 15 pick and a potential Hall of Famer. But
immediate speed. That's so rare.
Yeah.
Pick a sport. If you got that instant speed that goes with the mind the way Earl had it, you're a game changer out there. Just extremely, extremely rare.
Yeah, I'd say even like Witherspoon is more, and I think Thomas is even quicker.
Yeah,
that first couple of steps, even quicker than even Witherspoon is. But Witherspoon has that immediate speed, and he has that recognition, right? He blows things up. It's amazing. But if we're comparing Earl Thomas to Quandre Diggs, they're also quite different. And Quandre Diggs is a good Pro Bowl level player. And Earl Thomas was, like you said, potential Hall of Famer. He might be kept out for reasons, but on the talent level, it won't be because of talent and what he did during his prime years.
No. What do you guys think about the Devondre Sweat visit? Getting a massive guy in there. You think that is a piece that we might need in the early day 3, late day 2? What do you think about that?
Well, he might end up falling right to day 2, day 3, because he was a guy who was expected to be a little bit earlier in the draft and then has a DWI arrest at this time of year. Not the way that you want to go as a draft pick, but a guy who ends up coming in to visit.
Yeah, the thing you guys know me and my penchant for beef, and so he's the pure nose 360 pounder in this draft, right? And so he's kind of a one of one, but between his size, he is for his size, he's still a darn good athlete. So yeah, I just think I wonder, I think the bigger indication will be, was this John Schneider's rule that they put in place where it's like, hey, character above all, fairly recently after they got burnt, maybe a couple of years back. I think it was John Schneider and probably some Pete Carroll, but I think that'll be interesting if Seattle has a chance to take him. And like last year with Jalen Carter, like they just, okay, the Eagles eventually took him. I think we made the right move because we got Witherspoon. But from a talent perspective, Jalen Carter is and was a very good prospect, and we were never taking him ever. He was never going to be drafted by Seattle. And I just wonder if Sweat will get the same treatment now. Carter's incident ended up with a dude who died, right? I mean, that was terrible.
Yeah.
But Devondre Sweat's could have, it just didn't.
That's right.
But, but the act of doing it
Yeah.
when you're in position to be drafted so high. It's just it brings into a lot of discussion about does he have it upstairs to think through these things and be careful, careful with the team he's going to come represent.
Well, I thought that for me, what I got about Carter wasn't just that immaturity and that outside the game choice. It's just a lot of whisperings of how he handled a lot of things involving football practice, training, teammates. It seemed like there was a lot more there than and I think DWI should be taken extremely seriously. You're endangering yourself and other people. There's no way around that. But young guys can learn. Are they going to be able to, or do they just keep going back to the same, poor? There's certain things about people where they're just not going to change when it comes to their practice habits, their treatment of other people all the time. And I felt like there was more to Carter than one incident, but maybe I was wrong in that take.
No, I think you're right too. But the thing, and I see some really good comments about this too. They are wildly different. Carter drove away from the scene or walked away from the scene. Um, all that being said too, but the rumor with Sweat is that beyond this, he's had some weight challenges,
Mm.
and he hasn't been as dominant as like he could have projected, and that uh, a little bit of the take on him is that he kind of waited to this last year and then down the stretch to really show out. Then
Mm.
he slims down just for the combine so he could run a specific speed, which I would do too. Go get your money. I get it. But I think the on the field stuff too is that like Sweat was not as consistent as he could be given his side, given his size, his speed, and his traits. So he's been a little bit wobbly in terms of, and this is not a character thing. This is more just like he hasn't been the consistent player. And at the very end, he did peak. And again, for his own sake, he's peaking at the right time. And of course, I'll take the DWI out of it for a second. But I do think there's stuff there too, though, Phil and Brandon, that it's like, yeah, but he wasn't a consistent ball player. Now, again, at 360, at his size, his strength, I think you get him and you put him in the lineup immediately, and we have a better front seven. I don't know about what do you think, Brandon?
Well, I think that they solved some of their beef issues through free agency. So I look at that, and then I also look at another guy that they brought in who doesn't have those character issues, but is also relatively beefy, and that's Christian Boyd, the defensive tackle out of Northern Iowa, a
Yeah.
guy that you probably get a little bit later in the draft, around 4 or 5, played nose tackle. A dude who was a team captain, like all of his teammates gushed about how much they love Christian Boyd. Gosh, I think he was a 6-year senior, so you talk about guys coming out a little bit late, but
Yeah.
but
They
by all
call it
accounts, a good dude. So
they call them doctors, Tommy, right? Yeah, 6 year senior plus the COVID year. He's our age basically, right? So
yeah, blame COVID on that. So yeah, from character concerns to a guy maybe not so much character. Yeah, he's not at Sweat's level for sure, but I don't know if they necessarily need that guy. And there's other guys that I think that I would take in rounds 3 or 4, a little bit, kind of in that same area that Tavondre Sweat might fall into. And if you guys have anybody you want to throw out, I know I have a third, fourth round potential pick to throw in.
Well,
well, if you
first
have a
I want to clear Cameron Kinchin's name. I confused him with a teammate. I apologize. On the story, there is no character concerns. He always played for Miami. That was his cornerback teammate, and so we won't. I'm not even gonna say another name because I feel so bad for doing that. But Clinton, you got another guy?
Oh, I was actually going to ask if Brandon has another defensive guy,
Oh,
because some of the dudes that I was more circling around were on the offense. I will
Mm.
put one out there real quick though, because we need linebackers. I do think Chop Robinson, depending on the 3-4, what do you call him? But I think he's a heck of a ball player though too. One of the things with Chop, besides an awesome name, is I forget. I think it might have been Nemhauser who went through positions fairly recently, and he was talking about the average depth of tackling, like when the people make contact. And Colson was like 4.5 with 4+ yards. It was Willis was like 2 yards. And I think Chop Robinson was like negative -0.02 or something like that. Like he was like, so to me, and the point being was like a huge indication of him being extremely instinctive and especially against the run, like getting to the backfield and just laying the wood with precision. And again, talking about that safety position, and was saying but earlier with Quandre Diggs, same thing. You don't need all the speed in the world. He doesn't run the fastest 40, Chop Robinson. Who cares? Like, who cares? Like, and Brandon, are you, if we end up, let's say, trading back, which would be cool, potentially, but then getting Chop Robinson, there's like, oh, there's not going to be any linebackers in the first, but we go and get Robinson. Would you be comfortable with that if that's the way we go?
I think the stat that you brought up kind of, it tends to lean more of where uh, middle linebacker versus edge defender, and so
Yeah.
I don't know. I look at, I'd rather stay and take Jared Verse if he was there rather than trade back and get Chop Robinson. If that, that's kind of where I'm at, and I could see you wanting to lump some of these linebackers together too, because they brought in a lot of edge guys. They haven't brought in a lot of middle guys except for a late round, Tyrese Knight,
Yeah.
Nathaniel Watson, and those are mid to late round guys. Those aren't going to be starting caliber dudes. So yeah, in
I
terms
get
of
the feeling
linebackers,
they like the guys that we got. I'm really getting the feeling they like our linebackers.
or they don't want to tip their hand of the guys that they really like toward the top of the draft.
Yeah.
Well, that's that part too is like, we bring in Byron Murphy, but we don't bring in Newton from Illinois. And I find that interesting because there's, depending on who you're listening to, there's some folks who are like, oh, Byron Murphy's, he's the guy. There's a whole slew of different analysts out there who think that Johnny Newton from Illinois is the better interior defensive guy. And so I just trying to parse that. I just wonder why. I wonder why they wouldn't, or did they get the look they needed previously, and they feel like they don't need to do that because they're ranked right next to each other. So it's like, well, if you bring in one, wouldn't you want to really delve into kind of the twin that's there in this particular draft in a spot where both might be available to you? So him not being there, I don't know how to parse it, but what you just said, Brandon, is like, maybe that's it. Maybe it's a bit of an okey doke where it's like, that's actually the apple of their eye.
And I don't know if you'd call it an okey doke more so than just characterizing as they have enough information on one guy versus not having additional information. And I know medical, it's something that John brings up a lot when he talks about reasons to bring guys in. And so that medical and character, I feel like those are the two big things that you hear them talk about when they're bringing in guys for visits. So we've gone through most of the defense. I think the only other guys we haven't mentioned are Michael Dowell, the defensive back out of Miami, Ohio, Quantez Stiggers, who's a cornerback out of the CFL. And so another CFL guy. I know, Phil, you brought up the quarterbacks earlier on. Bo Nix, we mentioned Spencer Rattler, another quarterback that they've brought in. John Reese Plumlee out of Central Florida, who I can only imagine would be a guy that would be someone that they bring in as a rookie free agent. Because I don't see him being drafted. But that's one of the things that he talked about too with the local guys. He said, yeah, there's some draftable players here and some of them that we're going to invite as rookie free agents once the draft is over.
Yeah. I'd like Adam to handle the quarterbacks. He's doing this cool show and he's really putting the work in to research and look at them. So
we got 7 more to go. Yeah.
What's that?
We got 7 more to go. We aren't going to cover Plumlee because he wasn't even on the board. We talked about Rattler and Bo Nix is going to be, I'm interested to hear his comments. The thing that turned me off the most about Nix was watching his combine performance because it just was not that impressive. But then you go back and you watch some of his games at Oregon and his decision making, his processing, his ball placement. It's interesting to hear that he could be falling because I think that in my mind, as I look at some of the other guys that are potential round 1 guys, as I start ranking them, there's things about Nix that puts me ahead of guys like, I mean, shoot, even guys like Caleb Williams, like he can do so many cool things outside of the pocket.
Yeah.
and is fun to watch, which, Bo Nix is kind of boring to watch because of those types of processing reasons. Like he kind of knows where he's going to go with the ball. He had a good team around him, whereas Caleb, he kind of had to run for his life at times. So when you compare those things, which one's going to be a better NFL quarterback? I feel like Bo has some of those things that more quarterbacks that, have consistent success in the NFL. Like he has a lot of those things already.
But
I
Caleb,
would,
we're not even going to sniff Caleb. So that's
Oh,
kind
no.
of,
yeah, I would say, would I be completely shocked if Bo Nix gets into the league and ends up with like a Kirk Cousins like career, which is to say a very
Good career.
successful and
Yeah.
extremely well
Oh,
paid quarterback.
very
Um,
good.
yeah. Would I be shocked? I guess no, I wouldn't be. I think that's like kind of his upper limit, and like
Mhm.
that's still darn good, right? The thing you mentioned, the series, that the 2-part series that you and Adam are doing, which listeners out there, just go check it out on YouTube. It's one of the first ones that are still there. I think the title was like, "Can they play?" Part 1 with QB evaluations. What I like that Adam gave a little bit of detail into what he does and doesn't do, because you
Yeah.
got so many folks that, of course, that hang up on and every throw at the combine without pads and all these things. And Adam was pretty clear. He's like, I don't watch college football like during the season. He's like, I don't watch highlights. He's like, and I don't watch the combine and judge off the combine. So I go back and I watch full games of just all throws. And I think it actually might be the fairest way to do this, right?
No,
So,
that's
you know,
smart. That's a
yeah,
great way to do it.
it at
Look
least
at
at
all the
least
throws,
it
but you
at
got to
least
include the runs too. But
for
Right.
sure, but at least
But
it
don't
lets
be persuaded by the pro days. Don't be
right,
persuaded
right,
by what they do at the combine, because
exactly,
that's also not real football. And,
right,
and even at a lesser level than college football.
it
even
allows
with
you
their
to
teams and the band, and you're playing in the
yeah,
Pac-12, all that stuff's a factor. Just watch his throwing motion. Watch how he moves. Watch, it's these conferences are so very different with the quality of the pass rush, the quality of the defensive backs. When you watch actual college football games, some players looked really good that were not good. Rick Meyer, for instance.
right, right, and by the way, and I see Snail's comment, I'll end this and my comment with his comment. I actually think Spencer Rattler, just watching them go play, I like him better than Bo Nix. I think he could do. I just think he could do the more outstanding NFL throws that I don't think Bo Nix really can do on the regular. And he had no supporting cast whatsoever. He has Leggett, who's going to be an NFLer this year, a, but a bad team around him. Um, and you can and it kind of he kind of suffered because of that. But the Snail just asked if we're really saying, is Bo Nix, would he be an upgrade over Sam Howell, and if so, why? My quick take is, I don't think he would be. And I think they made the move for Sam Howell, and I talked about it a couple of shows ago. I said, hey, Seahawks fans, if you just mentally say, we drafted one of the dudes in the third round, like Bo Nix or like Spencer Rattler, who is still there, and if you just kind of mentally say, oh, we drafted Sam Howell, but we actually ended up drafting him with one of those third round picks, and we got picks back. It's like, if you just do that mental exercise, and he's a year younger, like I'm totally fine with Sam Howell. I think it's and then hearing that the Rams are really actually after him, for me, made it a little bit even better, because I do think the Rams are quite good at evaluating talent. I really do think that they know what they're doing.
Phil's
Phil,
flashing gang signs
Phil,
at
you
you.
got you've got a sixer up there. What you got?
What do you think about these numbers, though? I think that's left out just a little bit in the Howell situation. I have the number 4 and I have the number 2. Why do you think I have those numbers up in consideration to what you're saying about drafting Howell this year?
You saying 4 years of quarterback first? Yeah, 4 years of cheap contract versus 2 years of a cheap contract. So
And yeah, and the development and there's a lot to be said for those 4 years versus 2. That makes me think that John really isn't interested in the quarterbacks that might fall to him, because he's not even wanting one for 4 years. He took Howell and only has him for 2 years.
right, and that MG just made the same comment in parallel, and I hear that. I get that. That's true and factual. Okay, well then you got to do with two less years, but you also just accrued more picks. Like, just play it all the way out. You got draft capital, and you got a cheap quarterback. And then if it doesn't work out, guess what? You could always take another quarterback. There'll be a draft next year. And then the year after that, I'm pretty sure the NFL will do a draft and there will be quarterbacks.
Yeah, all that's true.
I think though that, and you guys know that I was a Sam Howell guy because I kind of pounded the table for him that year that he was coming out of the draft, that I thought he would be a decent pick for the Seahawks to take in the draft.
Mm-hmm.
I think both Bo Nix and Spencer Rattler would be an upgrade over Sam Howell. I like Bo Nix more than I like Rattler, but I think Rattler he has that ability to, I think, read defenses and hang in the pocket better than I think Howell. I think Howell's way too early to bail from pockets, and maybe part of that was just because of the offensive line for Washington, but I don't see it getting a whole lot better for him in Seattle necessarily. But I think that Bo Nix can do like all of the quarterback things better than Howell, better than just in terms of reading defense, ball placement, and being able to just run an offense well. I think that's where Nix outperforms them. But I'm fine with going in the quarterback situation that we have. And there's other offensive guys that I wouldn't mind seeing the Seahawks take. We've got
Theo Johnson.
Yes, let's talk
Theo Johnson. That's probably the one guy on this list for everybody, right? Because Travis
7
Glover,
touchdowns.
Matt Gonclaves on the offensive line. Probably don't really care. Malachi Corley from Western Kentucky at wide receiver.
I want to talk Corley too.
We can talk a little Corley, but the one guy that jumps out among this group because it's a need for the team is Theo Johnson, tight end from Penn State.
Yeah, well, Phil, you were quite excited. But what do you like about Theo?
I love 7 touchdowns for a 6'6" tight end, 34 catches in a college season. That sounds like not a lot, but that's really good. And
also Penn State did not throw the ball a lot, right? Penn State is, I'm pretty sure every game they play, it's 12 degrees. There's 21 mile per hour winds.
It's September.
It's like the reverse Field of Dreams for Penn, out in the valley there, man. So it's just cold and miserable that time of year in that part of Pennsylvania, and they just run the ball, right? And he still had that kind of production, and he's an incredible athlete.
He shows up in what, the 4th-ish round, 5th round, depending on
late third, potentially late third. But it seems like that's where kind of those types of tight ends tend to land, as late third, early fourth. The Seahawks have the second pick in the 4th round. That would be kind of the ideal spot. And when I see him as the Will Dissly replacement, because blocker, can catch if you need him. They even lined him up as fullback at Penn State.
Yeah.
I want a guy that can catch, can block, and grabs those touchdowns. Big guy when you need him for just short first, 3rd and short. He can make the catch on a fake block, or he can block and make it happen. That's what I want. I don't need all-star, amazing athlete. Just do the important tight end stuff for me.
And he's a good athlete. He is a good athlete. So to me, he's intriguing. But of course, there's probably 31 other teams, or at least several that are like, oh, well, we don't have our tight end room fully fleshed out either. But he's definitely of the 30s that came in from the offensive side. To me, he's the one that's like, ooh, he'd be the kind of crown jewel from the ones that came in, right?
You don't like him as the second pick of the 4th round?
No, I do.
Okay.
I do.
You think he's going to be gone?
I'm just saying, I mean, he may or may not be gone. I'm just saying, I think he's going to be the apple of a lot of teams' eyes. There's Tip Reedman. How do you say his last name? The really big tight end. And of course you got Bowers. There's just not that many. And I think he's going to be the apple of a lot of people's eyes is what I'm getting at. So I find it, I want to get excited about him, Brandon, but I just don't think he's actually probably going to be there. I think he's going to, the chances are all the dudes we talked about, every single one of them, chances are they're drafted by a different team just because of the odds.
He's probably at the top of that list, but there's other guys that are behind him that kind of fall into that mold too. I feel like a 6'6" tight end that blocks and catches a little bit. Once you get to round 4, there's probably 5 guys.
Yeah, I think he's at the very top of that.
But he's at the top, right? Yeah.
And it's the thing where it's like, yeah, he catches a little bit. Well, so did Sam Laporta, like because they weren't in environments where they were
Right.
throwing the crap out of the ball.
So what
So
about Cade Stovers? Cade Stovers from Ohio State, or Stover, I think it is.
Stover, yeah.
And then there's Sanders from Texas. What's separate? Because Theo is after, according on some, when you see some lists, Theo is about a round later in expected when they'll go. Why do we think that is? Why do you think Theo is expected to be maybe a round later? CBS, ESPN, a few of those places.
I think it's because they just aren't in featured passing offense, or
Right.
Theo wasn't in a passing offense.
Yeah, I just think it's production. I'm sure there's other things there too, but Theo tested very well. Like he tested very well, and yeah, again, exciting player. Obviously, we spent 5 minutes kind of like our shoulders are all happy. We're talking about a dude that might be a Seahawks tight end, and I am not. I was really into Fant when we made the trade, and it's waned for me. And when we re-signed him, I was like, all right. I didn't love the indication of what that meant for like our run game. And I don't think he's a very effective blocker. And I think we become more predictable if we're in 11 personnel and he's the only tight end in the field. And I don't love that. It's the opposite of being multiple, which is what I think McDonald wants to do on both sides of the ball. So again, a dude like Theo, exciting.
All right. Well, we've at least targeted the one guy from the visits on offense that we can all agree on that we want drafted. You wanted to talk Malachi Corley, though, Clinton.
I did. Did you put this up on screen while I was talking though for MG?
Laporta.
La Porta. Thank you, MG. I feel shame for not saying it correctly. So it is Sam Laporta. Yeah, Malachi Corley. What, Western Kentucky? Is that right? Is that right?
Western Kentucky.
Western Kentucky. Just interesting tape, and you're going to see highlights.
Find Western Kentucky on a map. I dare you. Can't do it.
Yeah, correct. And but if you go watch his highlights, which I know they're just highlights. However, for me, he's got a little Debo in him. He's just got that little bit of Debo because he's really fast across. He's fast enough across the field, like crossers, and like just getting enough separation. They get him going against linebackers or dragging safeties across the middle, or corners trying to follow him all the way across the field. And then he's just breaking tackles. And he's not slow. He's not like David Boston gigantic. If you remember David Boston back in the day, he looks almost like a blend of like Ayuk and Debo, and he's just running through dudes. Now, the challenge will be, is it because the talent level for the teams that Western Kentucky played are just not that good at tackling compared to, next level college. And then of course, what will be the pros. That part I don't know, but you turn the tape, the dude's catching the ball in space and just running through people, not running over people, just running through them. They're trying to get him down by his legs. His legs don't stop. And he gets that first down or he gets that touchdown. That's the dude we hate in Debo Samuels, because you can't bring him down without, gang tackling the guy.
Well, right around into the second, maybe early third round, the way you're describing him, smaller mid-range school, kind of reminds me of D. Eskridge, Clinton. Just dominating the poor tacklers, running through, got some Debo to him. In fact, even the way D's coach described Eskridge before we got to see him sounds a lot like how you are currently describing this particular receiver.
Malachi Corley. Yep. Yeah. Strong hands, runs through contact, right?
Yeah.
And was quick and fast, which is all the things that D was known for. And I'm a sucker for that. I mean, Brandon knows, and Phil, you probably know by now too.
Sure.
I am a sucker for what I think is that third piece of weaponry from a wide receiver that brings a different skill set. I have been a sucker for it for 4+ years now. I've been burnt by it. And I still think it's a really cool piece that if you can add that as a NFL team, you could just do certain things that others just cannot do. Even last year, even with JSN, he's not that type of dude. JSN is very much, I'll say it, JSN's very much like Tyler Lockett. He, maybe pitches yeah, he's very much like a Tyler Lockett. He's not like these other wide receiver 3 guys, and he's certainly not alpha like DK in positioning with what they bring to the table. So I just see JSN and Tyler being more carbon copies of themselves, and we actually still never got that. It's not a gadget guy. That's like your 4th guy. It's your very skilled 3rd wide receiver. Brandon, I'm a sucker for it. So do you think I'm just should I give up on it, or is Corley in our future?
Well, the Seahawks are also suckers for guys who perform well at the Senior Bowl. So
Yes.
Corley fits into that mold too. Not only does he have speed, but he has like that quick acceleration, and that's one of the things that they try and measure too. Not just their top speed, but how quickly you can get up to speed. And so he fits a lot of these little boxes. And so the fact that they brought him in, I just don't like it because how many wide receivers do we need that we brought in Chenault. We
Right.
still got Eskridge, who is probably going to be with us for at least 1 week at training camp. Yeah. And then you still have Tyler and DK and JSN. So it's just
And
if
Bobo and Bobo.
we're trying to, what are we trying to do with Bobo here? Are we trying to not get him playing time? No. But if they decide that they need, I saw in the comments here too, from Camden saying that we need a punt returner. Man, if he can return punts, then yeah, if that 4th, 5th, 6th wide receiver that we have on the team, and he's going to be young and with us for a while, if he can fill that role, then
Sure.
we definitely need special teamers.
Bobo's not doing that, Brandon. We know
No,
Bobo.
Bobo is not returning punts.
And neither is DJ Dallas. So that's good. And with the new kickoff rule we've discussed, like they want to have 2 returners on the field because of the way it just shapes out. So you want kind of a carbon copy, hence LaVisca. But then you're like, oh, well, LaVisca is the carbon of D. Okay. But like you said, Brandon,
No.
the carbon's a little, not too literal, but the chances that D actually plays meaningful football for us, it just can't be good. We can't. And I'm not one to say, oh, there's injury proneness. I don't know if that's really a thing, but I also can't sit there and ignore it and just like, well, it's a coin toss. So, it's 50-50 every single time. It doesn't matter what happened last time. No, it matters.
There's a few.
Yeah, it matters. And so I can't, and it also means that we can't put our chips on him just being there. So if we go get Corley and we're like, all right, we got 3 dudes who could kind of do the same thing and cover punt return, kickoff return, and then, a couple snaps a game type thing. And one of those 3 just has to hit to fill it. Well, I like our chances at that point.
I like that. Hey, I know we got to go, Brandon. Can I say the
Yeah.
one thing that irritates me most about your top 30 list?
Let's hear it.
Okay. This irritates me the most. We got 2.
Is it my top 30 list or
It's your top 30 list, Brandon. You texted us the top 30. We were looking into these players, so we're blaming you for this. No, we're giving you the credit. We've enjoyed a lot of these that you picked out for us, Brandon, the top 30 that the team had come in. But I want to tell you what upsets me most about your list, Brandon.
okay?
I know it's not really yours, but I'm rolling with this. There's only 2 offensive linemen on this list, if I'm reading this right. Travis Glover and Matt Gonclaves, the offensive back, right?
Yeah, that's it.
And they're not even expected to maybe go in the draft. They might even be undrafted.
Same with the linebackers, like day 3
guys.
guys.
What are you doing, Brandon? Why are you giving us this?
They're holding off until this upcoming week so they can bring in the guys that they really want to see. So that way this list isn't out there forever, and that they can maybe slide some guys under the radar this week. That's what they're going for. Phil.
John did say today on his interview that they're doing offensive linemen starting right after he got off the air. So I kind of like that.
Lining them all up. And Fatana was already there, right? But this didn't count as a 30 because he's local, although Bo Nix is not local. Right. Got it.
Sliding him under the radar, just like Adam sliding under the radar for this show and not being with us. But we'll see if we get him back next week. We'll see. We're going to be talking quarterbacks. We've got round 2, and I think we've got one more. We're going to split up the last 7 guys into 2 episodes. So if you haven't yet tuned in, make sure you check out part 1. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, youtube.com/Seahawkers podcast, you can subscribe. You can hit the like button, and subscribing, and make sure that you get notified when we go live. So just like here on Thursday night, we'll have at least one more of these before the draft. And then, gentlemen, we will be here draft night to see who the Seahawks either pick or trade back to pick.
Question: draft night 1 is a Thursday, right? So we're talking
2 weeks from
2 weeks from right now.
2 weeks from right now.
Excellent. I'm fired up for that because I got like a kid thing on Saturday, like kind of all day, which I love day 3. But I'm a dad and I got to do dad things. So day 3 is sacrificable. It's like, all right, I could have my phone out and, be obnoxious at a adult function and check my phone and be like, too bad, I'm going to watch my Seahawks and talk to you later. But day 1 and day 2, I get to hang out. So I will be part of it. I'll be here live for whatever draft party we're having. I am fired up for that. 2 weeks away. Let's go.
I can give you a preview, guys. Fatanu, he's there. Fatanu, trade down.
Yeah, that will hurt. That'll hurt. Let's end on a positive.
Okay. Now, on a positive, yes, we will be there. And did I mention, if you want to become a member of the flock, getintheflock.com, because leading up to the draft in the Discord, we can hang out there too. Lots of stuff to do, but draft night going to be especially fun, despite Phil's negative attitude going in to round 1 of the draft.
And I think with that,
there's only one thing left to say.
Go Hawks. Get
Hawks.
some O-linemen, and I'll
Go
be happy.
Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Yes, gambling goat. Yes. Go Hawks.
That's right.